Hello everyone and welcome back to 3Plays Minecraft. Previously we enhanced Penrose Botanical Gardens. We made a mess using TNT. And we also planned and gathered the resources for a bonemeal farm, which is the primary objective of today's episode. So just off the honey farm, a little past Penrose Botanical Gardens here, is the site of our new farm. So this big crater here, which needs cleaned up quite significantly, but it's going to depend on how the finished farm ends up. As I mentioned last episode, I did go in a creative world and design and build this thing, so I have a pretty good idea as to how the base of the farm is going to look, but there's also other enhancements that we want to add, like auto crafters and storage systems and item routing for the bone meal, potentially through to Penrose Botanical Gardens that we might want to add, which will change how the shape of the room is going to end up in the, well, once it's all built here. So there's a lot of exciting decisions still to be made here on how this project is going to shape up, but the hard work is pretty much done here. The materials are all collected in these shulker boxes, and yeah, I don't think there's much else to do here other than to get this thing built. It's going to be much easier to explain once it's all constructed here. So I don't anticipate running into any issues building at least the base farm here that I have planned out. But this is Minecraft, there's always stuff that goes wrong. It never goes the way you want it to. But yeah, I'll try and include you guys in any troubleshooting for the farm. So yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and build what we have here, and then I'll come back and I'm hoping, I hear a skeleton down there. I'm hoping that we have something to show for all these resources that we've collected here. Man, this is going to be a lot of blocks to place. Pretty much this whole area is going to be covered in redstone and goodness and farming. What's the best way to start though? Top to bottom or bottom to top? Probably bottom to top, right? Yeah, probably. Alright, so we have the farm built here, at least the first 10 modules, and again, we can add on to this, but based on my testing in the creative world, we're going to get about 12,000 bone meal per hour from this. It's about 12,200 bone meal per hour, it stabilizes at, although it's not going to be exact amounts, because of the way that bone meal is, well, random in the amount of moss that it gives you. So, yeah, as you can see here, the space is definitely filled out. I'm going to have to clear out a lot more of the terrain around it as well to make this whole room look nice, and then we'll also have to implement a storage system down here. Right now all the bone meal is just going to end up in this barrel. So the basic principle of the farm is to use moss, and whenever you bone meal moss around stone, it has a chance to convert that stone into moss, and also deep slate, but in this case we're using stone since we can use stone generators and generate infinite amounts of stone. So we generate moss from bone mealing the moss blocks, and you can do that with a dispenser. We also get all these extra flora blocks around it as well, like the grass, which gives you seeds, the moss carpets, the azalea bushes, and all this stuff can be composted, and whenever you compost it, you have a chance at getting bone meal, or you eventually get bone meal if you compost enough of it. Yeah, each layer is just the same thing repeated, and then it's just mirrored on the other side. So, like, count this thing is one module, and then yeah, it's mirrored here, and then we just have that stacked 5 times on top of each other. And each module is self-sustaining, so each module generates its own bone meal, and the bone meal goes into the dropper, and then it will recycle into the dispenser up here, which dispenses onto moss blocks, and generates the moss on top of the stone, which is then replenished via a stone generator because we have the lava and the water sources next to here, so that generates more stone and keeps the whole cycle going. So we need to prime each layer full of some bone meal in the dispensers to get the system started, and then after that, like I said, it should be self-sustaining. And then we have it all run via a centralized clock, which is up here. The on-off switch is this lever here, but I'll have to move that to somewhere more accessible. And also try to decide how the entrance is going to be for this. Yeah, I built this actually, maybe it's worth mentioning this. I built this within 2 chunks. Yeah, right here you can see the chunk boundaries, with the exception of this one redstone line here, which I couldn't really avoid. It kind of has to be here. But with a vanilla chunk loader, you can load a 3x3 area, a chunk area. So it shouldn't really be an issue that it's outside 2 chunks, but everything else fits nicely within, these 2 chunks right here. So that should make it easy to chunk load and avoid any issues. But yeah, let's go ahead and fill each dispenser full of bone meal, and then we'll test to see if this works. Okay, I filled all the dispensers full of bone meal to get this primed. We have the water buckets in the dispensers. And then also for the clock here, this is just an etho hopper clock. We're using this in a few different places in the world. But yeah, this is just filled with 5 items. I found this was the most stable way without getting cobblestone. We do not want to end up with cobblestone here because cobblestone cannot be converted into moss blocks. So I tried to push this a little further and bring it down to 4 items. Oh. Oh, that's not good. Oh no. Oh no. I think, yeah, that's not good. I shouldn't have done that at all. We're supposed to double pulse these dispensers to pick up the water buckets. I think I'm going to have to go and manually reset it. Yeah, you're not supposed to take it out of there. Okay, let me fix that little mistake. Okay, so I managed to get it all working inside of the survival world, but in order for us to understand this farm, I think it's easier to see inside of a redstone test world. So this is just one module of the farm, or one half of a module. Well, no, it's one module, right? We have it flipped and then stacked on top of each other in the main design. But yeah, this is the only essential part that we need to understand. All the rest of it is just the same, just copied over and over again. So what happens is every time we get a signal from the clock, we pulse some... Actually, let's just turn it on and follow the redstone. So whenever it pulses, we get first a signal to the dispenser underneath here. So the signal comes from the clock here and runs down this line. And then it will pulse the dispenser under here. And then 2 ticks later also pulses a piston. Because when you Bonemeal Moss, you have a chance to generate the azaleas or the carpets. And that prevents the dispenser from activating on top of this moss. So we have to get rid of that. And so we just have a piston pushing any of that out here. Which just goes into the same water streams and is also composted. So the dispenser generates us the moss and all the flora on top of this platform. And then what happens after that is we also give we pulse these lines here on all 4 sides. And that activates some pistons, regular pistons down here. Yeah, right there. And that pushes the stone into the middle of the platform. And whenever you push the stone into moss blocks with a piston, it will break the moss and generate it as an item. Or, yeah, cause it to pop off as an item. And so this way we can get all of the flora out of the way, and we can collect all of this moss and then regenerate the stone and push that into place using the pistons. And then after that point, the other thing that happens when we get our output pulse from the redstone is that we send it to this line here. This is the one that hangs off the edge of the chunk boundary. And we have a monostable circuit to get a 1-tick pulse. So if we catch it, we get our 1 tick here to the dispensers, and then 8 ticks later, we get a second output. You can see right there, right? So the first tick here goes to the dispenser, and then first tick, second tick. So that drops the water, or dispenses the water buckets, and then picks it back up. So all the items then flow into this corner eventually. Not all of them make it every cycle, but given enough time, I haven't found that any items get stuck. They do all eventually make it through the fence gate down there. And then it joins some water streams and is aligned via honey block. So you can see here the items right across the very edge of the block because they're aligned on the honey. The honey is slightly less than a full block, so it allows the hoppers to pick up the items. And the hoppers send the items into some composters, which generate bone meal. The bone meal is then output via these hoppers at the bottom into a dropper. And this is just on an auto dropper system, so anytime there's any bone meal in the dropper, it will dispense it into the water stream. And it is first collected by this hopper, which feeds it into more droppers down here. And these droppers are just pulsed every time we get an input signal to the dispenser. This one is the dispenser. And we just have 2 droppers here, which are pulsed to push the bone meal up 2 blocks. Because of the way that this dropper has to be, because these composters are sided. So in this way, any bone meal that's generated, we first recycle into the system and give back to the original dispenser to generate more moss. And then any extra is just sent across this water stream and into our item collection, which will eventually be item storage. So I hope that makes sense. I've got the schematic now available on Discord in this configuration. And in theory, you could even, you could build more modules on top of this. I just have it in a 5 stacked configuration. And this farm should give you about 12,200 bone meal per hour. I let the farm run for 5 Minecraft days, and that was the result of the test. And I also didn't generate any cobblestone here either during the test, so it's all 100% reliable. I think as long as you keep the chunks loaded. So yeah, jumping back into the main world here, we have got some frame rate loss. I was considering going much larger with the farm and building many more modules on top of this. But one, we're getting kind of close to the surface, and I don't really want it peeking out of the surface because that's going to look bad. And there's also some water above here. There's actually water all around this, as I mentioned. But yeah, we do get some frame rate loss. We lose about 30 FPS or so. Oh, we have some cobblestone there. That's not good. We lose about 30 FPS or so. I wonder if that was from when I took the items out of the clock. I'll have to watch out for that because you can't generate moss on top of cobblestone, so this will always remain. We're going to have to manually go through and remove that. But yeah, I was considering going much bigger with this farm, but honestly 12,000 bone meal an hour is probably plenty. And I don't really want to tank the FPS anymore than what we're already doing here. Yeah, this really is not ideal. I'm going to have to watch out for that, because in the tests in the creative world, I never ever had cobblestone. So I'm almost wondering if this farm is somehow directional. Maybe it's worth running more tests, because I did rotate the whole schematic from the one in the creative world. It's identical, but it is rotated. So I wonder if there is some sort of directionality to it. Yeah, I was immediately just going to go ahead and start working on the aesthetics of this room and maybe get the storage system sort of figured out. But if there is issues with cobblestone generation, I want to fix that. And if it turns out I have to rebuild it, then I will. Because I'm not going to settle for a broken farm, right? We're going to make sure it works. But yeah, let me run some more tests here and I'll come to some conclusions as to why there's cobblestone inside. So in the last episode, I talked about wanting to have some automatic item distribution into all the dispensers here at Penrose Botanical Gardens. And so I think that's what I'm going to try to work on here for the next couple of hours while I let the bone meal farm run. So far, no more cobblestone, by the way, so I think we're good on that front. Yeah, I'm going to continue to let it run for a bit just to make sure it's in good condition, it's in good working order. But then once we have all that bone meal, I want to be able to distribute it automatically from some sort of centralized location here at PBG to all of the different micro farms in the room. So there's essentially like 3 different options we could go for. We could go for one massive hopper line, which I'm immediately going to rule out here. That's going to introduce way more lag than necessary. And the other issue with that is we have to change Y levels a lot because of the way that this room is laid out. So like these farms down here, for example, the dispensers are on Y level 20-ish. And then up here, it's going to be like Y level 25. The dispenser is up here in the ceiling. And then up here, it'll be like Y level 30 or so. And yeah, we have to change Y levels quite a lot, which presents more challenges. So the second option we could consider is a hopper minecart and just run this across the room to each of the different farms. The problem with the hopper minecart is that it's pretty slow. So if we have some like bone meal in a centralized distribution chest somewhere, and then we run the hopper minecart over, it's pretty slow. It only picks up a couple at a time, depending on the speed of the minecart. But we're going to have some powered rail if we want it to change Y levels a lot. So I think I'm kind of ruling this out. Since all of these farms here at Penrose Botanical Gardens are designed to be like really fast, or well, yeah, faster than a hopper minecart can distribute into a dispenser. So the solution would be either to buffer it before the dispensers here. Say we had like a full chest buffer for each of the farms, which means we would be buffering a lot of bone meal. However, I think the method I'm going to end up going for here is... Oh man, this is so loud. Yeah, the hopper minecart would also be pretty loud. But yeah, the solution I'm going to end up going for here is to use... Oh, did I already have it on me? Yeah, I did. It's to use just ice and water streams everywhere. Now, this also does have its challenges of its own. Let's see if I can get out of here. Man, I've taken so much damage from the elytra. So much kinetic energy. I almost died earlier on trying to get out of there. So water streams pretty much have infinite item transfer, right? Like, within reason of the game, of course. But the challenge you now run into is how do you prevent it despawning and then introducing too many items in the room? So when we have like some sort of centralized chest here, which I'm thinking is going to be right around here. It's pretty central and is in a reasonable location. That's the wrong way. But yeah, I think we're going to have some sort of centralized chest here that we can drop bone meal into. And then run the hopper minecart from here. Or wait a minute, not the hopper minecart, the water streams. Yeah, so we're going to have some water streams originating here. And I think we're just going to try to get it on a big loop. So all of the output water lines here at PBG use light blue stained glass. At least where there is output streams. Some of them just go straight into hoppers. But yeah, for the items that flow into storage, it's all light blue stained glass. And to avoid any mistakes for crisscrossing the streams, because we don't want to really do that, we want the bone meal lines to be separated from the output lines. I want to make sure that they are marked, and I was thinking about also doing that with the redstone lines as well. You guys gave me a good suggestion to use coloured wool, which honestly I might do once we have a wool farm. The redstone lines here from the control panel is also something that we have to avoid. But yeah, there's a lot of redstone lines here, some of which I have gotten in here, or at least the structure for the redstone lines. I still have to run the redstone dust here, but there's also quite a lot missing. There's a lot of redstone lines missing, so we have to bear that in mind. But yeah, like we have to get the bone meal lines to like here and here, and then to here as well for cocoa beans, here for these dispensers, down here. So there's a lot of Y level changes, and it has to go pretty much the whole way around the room. So yeah, to keep them distinct, we're going to use white stained glass for all the bone meal lines. Okay, yeah, so what's the best way to go here? Probably in a clockwise direction. We'll start off with the sea pickles. We need to get it above here, into that dispenser right there. And then we'll probably go around the control panel. Oh boy, yeah, this is going to take me forever. Like, we're going to have to get some soul sand elevators in here in various places. And we do not want a spillage. That's the last thing I want here. But at least it'll give me enough time to run the bone meal farm to 100% test to make sure it's reliable. Again, so far we've had no cobblestone. Let's hope it stays that way. Oh yeah, there's also water in here as well. Just random water pools that I really need to get rid of. So one other quick thing I wanted to show you guys before I start laying down all the water streams here, speaking of water streams, is I briefly mentioned last episode that I introduced this sort of like, yeah, bin that we can toss items into for mass storage to skip the mixed shulker sorting. And I mentioned the unfortunate reality where I was a bit careless and let about two double chests worth of stone despawn because I tossed them in the system too fast. Well, I've implemented a bit of a fix for that back here, where we now have a shulker box loader instead. So we can toss in full shulker boxes into this barrel above. I'm going to get rid of all this because one, I didn't like the aesthetic of this in the way. And two, this is more convenient this way. So whenever we want to bypass mixed storage for, like, say we have a box like this, for example, we're clearing out a bunch of space. We end up with stone and deep slate and gravel and, yeah, andesite and all that sort of stuff. Well, we can go and toss it into that barrel up here, and it will skip sorting through mixed shulker box storage, and we'll just go straight into our system here. So what happens is when we place the shulker box, it gets placed in this item slot here and is unloaded and then put into a dropper. And so the water streams just lead it into the same input system, the same input hopper. So you might be wondering, like, how is this going to prevent items despawning? Well, instead of us tossing a full inventory manually on the ground, like we do this, like this is a lot of items at once, this is hundreds of items at once, and it's way more than a hopper can pick up. But since we're unloading from a shulker box, we can make use of the fact that, well, we can slow it down basically, right? So we have an auto dropper system here, just a comparator clock. And so this way you can see the frequency of items that are being dispensed. It's one at a time. And it's more or less the same speed that a hopper can collect items, which means we're never going to have too many items back up here on the hopper at once. So yeah, that is basically our solution here, and is an easy way for us to bypass the mixed shulker storage and just offload a bunch of these shulker boxes like the one we tossed in here. I have two more actually, so we can place these down in here, and it should automatically break the box when it's empty, and then dispense the new one to unload. And for now, the empty shulkers just end up in this barrel. But I think honestly it would be pretty wise to somehow route it to this chest, which is where the empty boxes end up whenever we toss a full box into mixed shulker or mixed sorting system. The shulker unloader here drops the empty boxes in this chest, so I think it would be pretty wise to do that. Either that, or we automatically refill it back into these dispensers to dispense back into the shulker loaders for each of the different storage slices. So I hope that kind of makes sense there, and it should mean that I'm going to make use of that system, because right now I find that I'm not really making use of that. I'm still just building onto shulker monsters, which are appearing everywhere. We have another one at the Bonemeal farm as well, and there's a couple more scattered around the main village. Up in at the surface. I want to try to avoid that and actually make use of the systems that we're building. So to that end, let's keep working on trying to connect the Bonemeal lines to each dispenser mini farm in PBG. I extended the white glass and the water streams in a clockwise direction around the space, making sure to avoid the redstone lines and the output streams. The Y-level changes and super tight spaces made it quite challenging to route the streams in a super clean manner, but I tried my best to keep them aligned logically. And the item throughput limitation to prevent item despawning and oversaturation of bonemeal in the water streams was something I hadn't fully designed at this point. I just wanted to make sure that the track for the bonemeal was built. The bonemeal for white dye, for the white stained glass, we had plenty of, but unsurprisingly I did run out of glass while doing this because it is a lot of glass. I wanted to make sure it was covered on top, not just on the sides, just to avoid anything other than bonemeal making its way into the dispensers and clogging them up. So yeah, I did run out of glass midway through this, but a trip to our librarians sorted that out rapidly. Something that didn't happen so rapidly was building all these water streams. It took forever, but eventually I was able to connect the loop, and yeah, build our bonemeal lines running all the way around Penrose Botanical Gardens. So in addition to getting the bonemeal lines in a completed loop around Penrose Botanical Gardens, I also ran the rest of the redstone lines to each of the different farms that were missing their redstone input controls. Don't mind the spaghetti back here, there's quite a bit of it actually. It's not my finest work ever, but I mean, yeah, we're in the restrictions of like using redstone dust here. So I done my best, okay? I might come through here, like I said earlier, and replace all the lines with coloured wool to represent each of the different farms, but I don't know if I'm going to do that right now. So, yeah, there's just a couple more redstone lines left to run. Let's switch them on. It's kind of an easier way to see where the repeaters need to be. So we need to run these 2 lines here, which are for... it's a little hard to see. So one plugs in here. So it's going to be pale hanging moss, and the other one is glow lichen, I believe. Yeah, so that switched the lines on here. We can easily see where the repeaters need to be. So it needs to be one at least here. And then let's continue this one up as well. So I think I've also figured out the solution for item limitation for bone meal, just so we don't oversaturate the line and end up with way too many items in these water streams. I also just realized here, we're on the last 25 pieces of redstone dust. Like, there is 3 in the shulker box, the redstone box, and that is it. And we are out after that point. So let's hope we can get this to all the pistons. Oh, we're 1 short. We're 1 signal strength short. There we go. This one has to go to that piston. Hopefully we have enough signal strength. There we go. And these ones are already done, right? Oh no, they're not already done. You know, I wasn't planning on building the witch farms anytime soon, but I think we might have to expedite it so that it's a little higher in the priority queue. Because redstone dust, either that or we work on the villagers and we get these guys fully fleshed out. Not here though, because the villagers actually cause a lot of MSPT lag with all the entities loaded. Hello, Wandering Trader. What do you have for us? The Wandering Trader in this update has received different trades. So I'm kind of curious what he has to offer now. Oh, that was a llama shooting at me because of the zombies. Hey, stop running away from me. I don't think you had anything good, right? Yeah, it's slightly different trades though. I don't know if he always used to give an iron pickaxe. But yeah, still nothing decent. Okay, so the other 2 lines we were missing is the wildflowers and the pink petals. So yeah, as you can see here, the control panel is filled out quite nicely. We have 5 empty slots. This one, these 3, and this one on the end. So we have potentially 5 more farms that we could add. I don't know where those would be though, because this space is already getting quite full. Unless we expand it this way more and add more farms like back here somewhere, but yeah, I don't know. We've kind of saturated this whole space and built ourselves into a bit of a corner here, which, as you know, I don't really like to do. But yeah, I think for the most part, we have managed to get all the farms built that we wanted to. That clicking is very annoying. But I think this is going to be the last one. That should be the wildflowers and pink petals. Yes, perfect. And yeah, all of these redstone lines and building this whole control panel is absolutely not necessary. The most efficient way would just be to put the switches right next to the farm. Because, like, really, we're going to have to switch these on. And then for some of them, run up to the farm. Like the cocoa bean one, for example, which is manual. Run up to the farm to actually use it after we switch it on. Which is not terribly efficient. But, you know, I wanted to just overcomplicate it and give myself an excuse to build this control panel. Because I had this idea and I really wanted to follow through on it. So, yeah, it allowed me to be creative. And I've learned a lot by building all this as well. Okay, so let's return to the bone meal lines here. This is where the end of the line terminates. This one here. And this is where it will begin. So we're right underneath the buffer chest where we're going to drop bone meal. So what I want to do here is to have a way that we can... Yeah, when the bone meal returns, so when, like, let's say all the dispensers are full, and we end up with excess bone meal returning at the end of the loop, we want that to be buffered in our chest to reset its item cooldown, so it doesn't despawn. And I haven't tested to see how quickly it makes its way all the way around, but I don't suspect it's going to be 5 minutes, nowhere near 5 minutes because of the compressed ice. That'll speed up the item entity speed going through the water streams. So it should be less than 5 minutes for it to be dispensed and then make its way all the way around, and then be buffered in this large chest. Now, we don't want it to just continually send it all the way around the room. What I want to do is add some sort of a detection system where it will only dispense if there is below a certain amount in the chest. So I think the way we can do that is we can have a comparator signal from the chest. So this will read the signal strength or the fullness level of this large chest. And I'm just going to place a hopper, I think, from above. I might make it so that we have some sort of a uncrafter so that we can add bone meal or bone blocks rather than just bone meal to this to give us more compressed storage. But I think that's something we'll handle over at the bone meal farm and not necessarily here. So we put bone meal in this large chest here. It's going to flow to this one. And then we have another hopper underneath this chest, and that's going to lead into a dropper. And then from this dropper, we're going to need to auto-dispense it. So anything that ends up in the dropper should be auto-dispensed. We can do that with a comparator. So comparator into repeater, into block. And we need to complete the comparator clock here. So it needs to go into the side of the comparator. And then also into or power this dropper here, which I guess we can do this way. So now anything in the dropper should be automatically dispensed into the water stream. So this will be our bone meal. And then what we want to do here is limit this hopper, I think. So to do that, when we read the comparator signal from the large chest, we want to compare this against a signal strength of, well, I don't know exactly. Let's just try it. Let's put this on stone. I think we'll say maybe like 2/3 full. Well, it's not going to exactly equal 2/3 full, but you kind of get the idea, right? This also, when you compare the signal strength of a crafter and you lock the slots here, it outputs a signal strength of, in this case, 6, because we've locked 6 slots here. And if you lock all 9 of them, you get a signal strength of 9, which is a very convenient way to get a specific signal strength up to 9. So when you do a comparator into a comparator, it's not going to allow this comparator to turn on until it reaches signal strength 6. So in essence, this chest has to be full with about, I don't know what that would be. It's about 3 rows of items, 3 rows of bone meal, before we happen to get an output signal. And then we want to lock or unlock this hopper. So what we need to do is somehow get a signal up to here. Maybe we can invert a redstone torch on the hopper. And then somehow grab that from here. Wait, I'm overthinking this. We can just do that. And that should work, right? That should, when this is full enough, it should invert the torch and enable this hopper. Right now it's disabled. So anything in the chest right now is not going to be pulled out into the dropper. However, with enough bone meal in there, yeah, the farm has been running for quite a few hours. And still no cobblestone. Let's just verify. Yep, no cobblestone, no cobblestone, no cobblestone, no cobblestone, no awful stone. Yes, everything seems to be working perfectly. Yes, awesome, awesome, awesome. We haven't had any issues with this when it was running. I had Steve loaded, I had Steve in there just to load the chunks. And I went AFK for a bit. And yeah, still no cobblestone, which is good. That means it's 100% reliable. I think so long as you load the chunks, like I said, but we're going to implement a chunk loader later on. So yeah, now we can drop our bone meal in here. And we should see that when the chest is full enough, it's going to start to dispense into the dropper and start to go into this water stream here. Just need another water source there and cap this off. Okay, the hopper is being a little bit slow here. Let's speed up this process and give some more to this double chest. So this is quite a sizable buffer, right? It's essentially 2 double chests worth of buffer, plus whatever is going to end up in the dispenser. So that's another 9 stacks per farm. So I would say that's a pretty reasonable buffer to have at Penrose Botanical Gardens. So we still don't have our output signal yet. I think it's going to be about 3 rows. Let's see if we can catch this at the right moment. So we should see this comparator turn on. Now. And that inverts the torch. Right? So that should have unlocked the hopper. Oh no, because it's still being powered by this redstone dust. This redstone is still disabling the hopper. So we need to put our... I think we're going to have to move our torch to here probably. And then put the redstone dust. Yeah, there we go. Alright, so now we have bone meal going into the water streams. And let's follow this up here. So what happens is it goes over top of this hopper to feed into the sea pickles. And then it goes around a little loop. And then up another water stream. And then down this track. Round the corner. And then it goes down. and then into all these farms, which is the 2 tall flowers. And then from the 2 tall flowers, it goes around a little loop, or it should, once all the dispensers have filled up. It's gonna, fill all these hoppers. And I guess we have three extra hoppers here, so that's an extra 15 stacks of bone meal. So it's gonna be quite a sizable buffer before it makes its way all the way around the room. So then it goes up here, and then over here, down to the nether and twisting vines, and then to the cocoa beans right here. And then, I missed a piece of glass right there. That's gonna maybe cause some issues. And then it goes up a soul sand elevator across here, down, and then into the glow lichen and the pale hanging moss. And then it goes up again, and then across to where we ran the redstone lines. And from there, it drops down a couple blocks into the pink petals and the wildflowers. And then continues across here, up another soul sand elevator. Yeah, see what I mean by all the Y level changes? And then it goes through the second tunnel. So we have like 2 adjacent tunnels here. And then from there, it goes straight down. So that drop there goes into here. So it's right above this little space. I didn't really know what to do with this space, so I just had it... Yeah, the bone meal is going to drop right there after it's filled all the dispensers. And it drops down into this water stream, which is the end of the line here. This is where the termination point is, and then it buffers back in this chest. And yeah, as you can see, the comparator is now turned off, locking the hopper again, because I guess we're under the threshold of bone meal. As soon as we give it some more, it should dispense more, until it reaches about, I guess it's 2.5 rows of bone meal in the double chest. So by doing it this way, we ensure that we always have space in the chest to catch any extra bone meal that comes through the system and is not able to be collected by the dispensers and the hoppers. And we also ensure that we don't have too much bone meal running as item entities when we don't need it to be. Like, I don't want it on a constant loop. I want it to only be when we give it enough bone meal in the system. So yeah, taking a look at the whole build now, it didn't turn out quite as clean as I wanted it to be. Like, there's a lot of spaghetti here. I tried to, for this section, by the way, I tried to make it so that we could have our staircase still. That's why I have it going up and then down again. And same for over here on the secondary entrance, I have it like going up and then over, as opposed to just going straight across, because I want to make sure that this is still open, right? And then on the control panel, I did decide to knock some holes in this. I'm not so sure about it, to be honest, if we want to see the bone meal in these spaces. I mean, I guess it gives some, I don't know, it gives some visual interest. There should be a hole in this one as well. It gives some visual interest, but we're going to have to cover up back here, because I don't like seeing the granite and the extra glass. So I don't know if I'm going to keep that or not. But yeah, at long last, after many, many hours of grinding, we have all the redstone lines run, all the bone meal automatically refilled into all of the dispensers, and we have a bone meal farm to generate us bone meal. Tons and tons of bone meal. I still have to get the sea pickles, or rather the coral for the sea pickles, to get those automatically farmed. So some of you guys have suggested doing a comment of the day or a comment of the episode, which I really like the idea of. So I think that's what we're going to do here moving forward. I've picked out one of the comments to start us off here, so I know there's some episodes missing, but I'm hoping we can do this every single video at the end. So I've picked out this comment. I have received multiple in the same sort of, with the same sort of gist as this one. And it says, from Rising Revengeance, the base is looking very etho to me, and I mean it in the best way. Etho also does this, by the way, so there's a lot of influence from Etho. You know, Etho is one of the first Minecraft channels I watched here on YouTube, way back when he released his first Chocolate Island series, and I've been watching his channel ever since. So he definitely is a big inspiration for me, I would say. And I guess that sort of shines through here in the series. Yeah, Etho definitely is a big influence on the channel, on the base as well, on my building style. I would say it's kind of similar, now that you guys point it out. We kind of have similar approaches in how we tackle different things, and also the moss farm design as well. I can't take full credit for this moss farm design. It's very heavily based on Etho's base, or Etho's layout for the way that he does his moss farm, but there are some differences. So when I was designing the moss farm, I took the base from Etho's design. So we're in the Hermitcraft Season 9 map right now from the world download. And so this is the way that Etho done his moss farm. It does look very similar to ours, doesn't it? So yeah, like I said, I want it to be 100% transparent in that regard, as I said in episode 1. I'll always say whenever I took inspiration from different farm designs and so on. So it's the same layout. He has his dispensers on the top side. And yeah, his bone meal lines are in a centralized composting setup. But in our one, we have each module being self-sustaining, so the composters belong to each module. And we're doing the dispenser underneath the farm and not on top of the farm. Also, the general layout as well, he has his like horizontally. We have ours vertically stacked. And then additionally, the way that the redstone is run is a bit different as well. And I also haven't seen many other moss farms make use of the, or being able to recycle the azaleas that generate on the moss. Normally, like many different moss farm designs, just trash those items. But we're able to push it with a piston and then, yeah, drop it into the composter and also bone meal, or get the extra tiny little bit of efficiency from that and generate extra bone meal from the azaleas that generate on top of the moss when you dispense bone meal. And I didn't mention this before when I showed off this design, but yeah, from the clock, we also have a redstone tower, which leads the redstone upwards. And this is the way that we propagate the signal into each of the different modules. So we just have a repeater here, and then we grab another repeater to extend the signal strength, and that just continues up the glass tower to each of the different modules. So now I want to put a question to you guys. I've kind of been struggling with this, to be honest, but should I include more or less montages and time lapses in this series? I'm kind of leaning towards less, but I kind of like a montage and a time lapse every now and then, so maybe there's a balance to strike, but I would kind of like your feedback on that front. Do you guys prefer when I do like more live sections, or should I just skip over a bunch of or more of the things that I'm doing? It's always difficult to know what to include and what not to include in an episode, and I do cut out quite a significant amount of the playtime in this world, but yeah, let me know any thoughts with regards to that. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next episode in 3 Plays Minecraft.